Hello there, World of Tankers, and welcome to the channel. I'm your host, the Droodles Blitz, and in today's video, I'll be playing in the Russian Tier 9 Tech 3 medium tank, the T-54. This vehicle, in Update 9.3, got buffed by 10mm on its upper plate and 20mm on the turret, making it now the most armored medium in the game, even compared to Tier 10s. Now sure, I guess you can make the argument that the E50M has more armor. However, the E50M is really not in the same comparison when it comes to mediums. I'm more specifically talking about vehicles like the 62A, the 121, Object 140, Object 907, T-22 medium, vehicles like that obviously are the Russian-esque playstyle. If we make our way over to Armor Inspector, we can showcase the buffs, and I should also point out nerf that was applied to this vehicle. The nerf is the lower plate. It also got, I think, about a 20mm lower plate nerf. I'm not exactly sure how much, but just think of it as about 160 thick. It's actually good, in my opinion, that this vehicle got a lower plate nerf. A, because if you're a smart player, you can very easily work around this. You just use your 5 degrees of gun depression, go to a hill, and then you just, hide the lower plate like this. It's pretty easy to do. Any player that has half a brain cell can do it, and there you go. Lower plate nerf. Problem solved. But as well, I'm glad that they do have a weak spot for this vehicle. That way, if players do make a mistake and they drive out in the open, now this vehicle has the opportunity to be punished, more specifically by Tier 8s that previously would really struggle to penetrate the frontal armor of the T-54. Now with that 10mm upper plate buff, for example, an E50 has no chance of penetrating the 54 with standard ammo. That's really impressive. I mean, the E50 has 220mm of standard pen. I'm even running Cali on this tank, and as you can see, no budge on the upper plate, and as well, because of that turret buff, it has no budge on the turret armor. Now, if you do load premium, yes, the 270mm of premium pen does have enough to cut through this vehicle's frontal armor on flat ground. However, I should point out that because this is a Russian medium, all you need to do is angle it, and now that upper plate is slowly going to start to turn red. And if you just use slight gun depression as well, that upper plate is going to become really red very, very fast, as you can see. Just using 5 degrees of gun depression on this vehicle and angling it correctly gets it upwards of 320mm thick. That means even Tier 10 mediums like the Leopard 1 that carries the most premium pen for a Tier 10 medium has no chance of cutting through the upper plate of the T-54, even with calibrated shells on. That is really impressive. I mean, even on flat ground, as you can see, that upper plate, just when using the 5 degrees, if you're not even angling it, is still quite a tricky penetration, again, for a Tier 9 vehicle. Quite impressive when you think about it. The turret armor is decent. It's about 250 base, which means that, yeah, heat shells will cut through the turret. But to be fair, if we were to pull out like a T-62A and load heat as well, you can see that the turret cheeks on the 62A are actually just about as large as the T-54s. So pretty dang impressive. And I mean, comparing the upper plate of the 62A, sitting at 230 against heat compared to the 275 that the T-54 has, that is a 45mm armor thickness on the plates. So, yeah, pretty dang strong if you were to ask me. So now that we've gone over the armor profile, there is one other thing that was changed on this vehicle in 9.3, and that is the gun. Previously, you would usually run the 100mm D10 T2C. This gun is not bad. It's got good DPM, it's got pretty good dispersion, pretty good aiming time. However, the downside was that it had worse pen by about 20mm on the standard compared to the D54. However, that's not the case anymore, as for some reason Wargaming said, yeah, let's just buff the D54 to not only have more penetration, better aiming time, but better DPM now, which basically defeats the whole purpose of the 10T2C. I don't really see a reason to run this gun. I guess you could say the dispersion's better, but your aiming time's worse. Who cares? Just go for the less accurate gun that has more DPM and everything else going for it. I should also point out that I'm running calibrated shells on this vehicle, which means if you're actually running gun rammer, you've got just shy of 3,000 damage per minute, making this actually one of the highest damage per minute mediums in Tier 9, actually better than a vehicle like the AMX-30B, or pretty similar, which is kind of sad when you think about it. So, let's get into a replay. I played this game on live stream earlier today, so if you were watching the stream, you already know what to expect. But judging that most people don't, this game will be something to showcase about the 54's armor change and how it's going to work. Now, the enemy team has an M46 Patton, VK45 O2B, 1390 Action 10, Chieftain T95, Lorraine 40 ton, and a Luva. Now, when it comes to penetration values, most of these vehicles loading premium can pen me, but most of them firing standard cannot. For example, the Luva won't with standard, Lorraine won't with standard, same for the Chieftain, same for the Action 10, 1390. VK will pen me, I'm pretty sure, with standard. The VK-45, that's got a tier 10 heavy gun. And the Patton, it's about a 50-50. The vehicle's got pretty good pen on the Patton with its standard, but really bad premium pen. So I got an angle to get a shell bounced from the Patton. So we get a nice bounce from the enemy AMX 1390. And at this point, we've already dealt 670 damage. And I'm not really scared of the enemy team at all, because I know that I've got good armor, I'm in a really good spot here, and we've dealt 977 damage already. However, things are going to turn bad, really bad for me. We get a penetration on that Patton, but he also gets a pen into us. Looks like we just over-angled it just a bit too much. But this is where bad things start to occur. That Luva just gets away with waltzing right into base B. Because even though I would argue that A side is one of the most important spots on this this map, which is, what, Fort Despair, it seems that my team disagrees, and most of them went over towards, like, C. But weirdly enough, we also have, like, heavies, as you can see, like our 50 TP in mid. I don't really know what our team's doing. These heavies should be punishing the Luva, but unfortunately that's not the case, and he gets a really lucky shell into like the edge of our turret cheek. Because of that, I don't have enough health to sit there anymore, especially if that Luva just decides to push. So we're going to get a nice snapshot onto the enemy there, and oh boy, now we got the 1390 that gets a shell to me. Thankfully, we narrowly avoid the Lorraine, and then boom, slap a shell into his vehicle. 2,977 damage dealt. Okay. We've done pretty good so far. We've just dealt about the DPM of this vehicle running rammer. Although you will notice that I'm not running premium shells. I didn't realize this at the time, but thankfully we got a tier 8 battle, so I guess it doesn't matter. But yeah, I must have just changed the gun when I was recording with the stream and forgot to load premium ammunition. But it doesn't matter, because as you can see, we're still doing a pretty solid job. Now, unfortunately, without premium ammo, I don't have the opportunity to pen that VK-45, so we just fired a shell at his hatch and wasn't really able to do anything to his vehicle. As we did talk about, this vehicle's dispersion isn't all too good when running the D54 armament. However, the good thing is that we are over 3,000 damage at this point, and we're just kind of chilling. We got the AMX 1390, exposes his front plate. We get a nice shell in. Okay, thank you very much for your hit points. Now, I'm not too worried about the 1390 penning me, but I only have 126 health, and I do know that for a fact the 1390 has about 250 millimeters of premium pen, which means it's plenty to actually cut through my lower plate, even at a super sharp angle, and even more enough to cut through my upper plate. So instead, what I'm going to do is put myself in a fantastic position for the 54. As you're going to see here, I'm basically just hiding my entire hull and only showcasing my turret. This is an amazing spot that I was working for this vehicle, and that's exactly what I was talking about before. When you use a vehicle like the T-54, it's so low down that it's incredibly easy to just hide your weak spots. Sure, I might be a one-shot, but I know that my turret is strong enough to bounce basically any shell from tier 9s or even tier 8s. So at this point, we've dealt 4,592 damage. All that's left is the VK-45. Fire! There you go. We get the final kill, and we break 4,600. That right there was just a fantastic battle to showcase really everything you needed to about the T-54. Its armor overall is pretty good, but don't think of this vehicle as impervious. Sure, it got buffed, but it also got nerfed. So what I will say is that yes, it is a very strong medium, and unfortunately in that battle I wasn't truly able to showcase the armor, you know, getting a ridiculous amount of bounces. However, we still did a really good job for the vehicle at hand. We were able to use the DPM with the newly buffed gun, and when you add that on with the fact that the armor is super strong, I think that this is going to be an incredibly powerful vehicle, even when fighting higher tiered opponents. Let me know what you guys think about the T-54 in the comments down below, but I actually really like this tank. I previously really liked it, and now that it got buffed, this might just become one of my favorite tier 9 mediums in the game. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.